talk about that price hike. I'm absolutely not a fan of it. You know, I expected a couple dollars a year, but 100%, that was definitely a surprise. But was it really?
It's been rapidly adopted,
Right.
which may, it's good, it's capable, but that may also be a double-edged sword, because I think we can just, look at the news and see how stable of a human being Elon Musk is, and are we throwing all of our eggs in that basket? Maybe that's not a good thing. I don't know.
I mean, the guy's got like 13 kids with 14 different women, so I don't really know how much stability and consistency you can expect from an arrangement like that, but it's still a good deal. It's less of a good deal now, but I'm gonna continue on with it. We'll see how the future goes. If they go another 100% from here, we might have to be rethinking some things. So let's get into some of the wisdom that you all shared with me in the comments of that video. I really appreciated that. Let's start with sticker removal. I got absolutely dragged in the comments by you guys for using that Goobigon and struggling so much with that. And I got comments from Born to be Winston, Selkirk QRP, Bravo Whiskey 88, P993C4S, and District 47 recommending heat. In fact, I think it was Selkirk QRP who recommended just leave it in a hot car and those stickers peel right off. One of you guys, I think Born to be Winston, said you didn't really have any issues, just be patient and peel them off slowly. I do not possess that skill, sir. District 47 and Fossil Channel recommended using silicone around the pass-throughs. Brilliant. Total oversight on my part. I did smear a little of that E6000 glue in the pass-throughs, but I think silicone would be a whole lot more appropriate. A few of you, Advice, Josh Reagan, and David Hubble, recommended plasti dipping the foam. Now I got to tell you, that texture sounds like an absolute nightmare, but I'll give it a shot. I'm open to it. I appreciate the advice. Allegedly, this leads to some better longevity with that foam, so that it shreds itself less over time, which, yeah, absolutely, it's a problem. It's not very robust foam. Okay, on the threaded inserts, P993C4S recommended not to jam the threaded insert with your soldering iron all the way through the plastic block. And I think that's really wise. In fact, I had one of my mounts break, and so I reprinted it and I tried that and it worked a whole lot better, and I appreciate that. But Juice Lab recommended, why not glue in the inserts? And then you sidestep that whole issue of melting them in all together, and that's also brilliant. And I think if I have to redo this again, if I have another mount break, I'm just going to hog out that hole a little bit with a drill and just epoxy that in, because gosh, that sounds like a whole lot less of a hassle. In fact, I did screw it up a couple times trying to melt those in. You get them crooked, you have to remelt them, and it never works out. And so I think that would reduce waste by quite a bit. Advice Vice and Fossil Channel recommended using a step drill bit instead of the hole saw like I used. I'm willing to give it a shot. I don't have one, but next time that I need to drill something, I'm going to pick up a step drill. The hole saw leaves a lot of material that just kind of like sticks out from the hole, and you have to scrape at it with your knife. And then I scratched the side of my wife's Starlink case with it, and I felt terrible about it. But I think the hole saw is a reasonable attempt. Now, Advice Vice recommended for those pass-throughs, for drilling those out, why not just 3D print your own template rather than go through all the trouble I had of measuring it out and trying to use the straight edge to get it all even. And I think that's smart. I am not aware of any sort of template already in existence for exactly what we're wanting to do, but you could get on something like Tinkercad and whip that up real quick. I really enjoy Tinkercad. It's all free and it's super intuitive, and you can really get in there and very quickly create the designs for the little tools that you need. Now, a number of you expressed concerns about overheating. I as well had that same concern, but Last Call 115, I View the Tube, and Wealth Builder Blockchain BCC all expressed the same concern. And it's completely legit. I expected to encounter this when the temperature rises way higher. But here in this warmer weather that we're having this spring, I found that anything above 70 degrees and I'm starting to have issues. So the anchor, it appears, will run about 30 degrees above ambient temperature while locked in the case. So above 70, we're done. We hit that limit of 105 for that anchor for input and output, where it starts cutting off. And so I figured out, if we tilt it upright, in fact, one of you even said that you actually read the owner's manual, and it says it really should be tilted upright for best heat dissipation. So I just open up the case, rotate it 90 degrees up, and I had perfect heat dissipation even into the really warmer temperatures while in the full sun. And it just so happens that that angle where the case rests on top of that anchor is the perfect tilt angle for the Starlink. Now, what I'm finding with the standby mode, tilt angle and direction that it's pointing doesn't really matter. You're already dealing with a really slow speed, and degrading that, you don't notice it. It doesn't get more degraded than it's already degraded by the virtue of just its limited speed with your plan. But if you are interested in upgrading to that faster speed for a time, or if you're just running it that way, the direction that it's pointed and the tilt angle may become more critical. So that is the perfect tilt angle, and that allows for best heat dissipation when we have those days that are above 70 degrees. Now, a couple of you asked if I could sell these kits to you, and unfortunately no, because on the Bamboo Labs, on the Maker's World listing where this person who created this design posted it, it says cannot be used for personal gain. So unfortunately, I can't sell these to you. I can't put them on eBay. I can't do anything. And even if I were to give them to you, well, you know, I have this channel here, and so that could be considered maybe some sort of personal gain. So I'm sorry, I can just direct you to where to find that design. But, you know, a lot of libraries now have 3D printers that you can use. And so I think that's a good route. But everybody now at least has a friend who can 3D print something for you. So there's options out there for you, I'm sure, if you go looking around. Now, the E6000 glue did not work out as good as I had hoped. And maybe it's because I didn't rough up the surfaces enough, but one of them totally dropped out. And so I went with the VHB tape, the 3M VHB tape that was recommended on that Maker's World listing. And that works great too. It additionally, just like the E6000 glue, has a 3-day cure time. I don't get it, but you take that tape per the owner's manual. I did read that one. And you press it in really hard. I think they had a specific like 15 PSI or something, whatever. I just pushed it in. And then it'll set right away, but it takes 48 to 72 hours to really get that full holding strength. So, lessons that I have learned from using the Starlink now to a great extent. There were times where I really didn't want to run the Starlink, but I did want to use the anchor still. And so I picked up a 5521 inline on-off switch, and I just stuck that right in the case. And I taped it in place, and it worked great. You need to make sure that you have one that has at least a 5 amp rating. This is an electrical component, so we need to make sure that the wires are thick enough that they can handle the amperage that the Starlink is going to draw. So I found one, I'll link it in the show notes, is a 5 amp rated extension, and it seems to be working fine so far. There's a lot of them that you'll find that have like a dimmer switch. I wanted to steer well clear of that. I did not want to accidentally dim the amount of power that's able to pass through this thing. So just a simple on-off switch worked great. Now, I did encounter quite a few issues with that USB-C pass-through that I used, and I ended up taking the link off of that last video. I'm not recommending that one at all. It worked okay at first, but what I found is that it was very, very inconsistent the more I used it. And I learned that not all pass-throughs are capable of supporting a USB-C PD, power delivery. You have to have enough pins in there or some sort of active management or something to allow for that energy negotiation between the anchor and either your solar panel or whatever you're drawing from it, your phone that you're charging off of that or whatever. So unfortunately, I don't really have a good rule of thumb to look for. Maybe somebody else out there who's a little bit more knowledgeable than me can chime in. But I believe if you look for one that's rated for 100 watt or is advertised as having 24 pins or something called active management versus passive management, I'm not sure, but I did find one that works. I'm not thrilled about the quality. I'll link it anyway, but I'm not recommending it. I'll link it just so that you can find something that actually works if you need it. And if you have better ideas for higher quality products, please share for the benefit of us all, because this one has some problems with the threads. They're not very strong. So if I crank it too tight, it jumps the thread and it loosens back up. I don't like it. I would love to replace it, but it's working now. It's working a whole lot more consistently. And lastly, I found that the anchor is very picky about the amount of power that it'll take. Really low amounts of power in it will not charge. So you have to have something that provides a good amount of wattage into that if you want to charge it. So maybe your old cell phone car charger that plugs into your cigarette lighter plug, it might not have enough to output. We have one solar panel I'll show you here in a minute. It didn't have enough output. It didn't support PD output from the solar panel to the anchor. It was just straight up 5 volt, 3 amp or something like that. It just wasn't enough. So the anchor is a whole lot pickier than I'd like. I'm not in love with the anchor. And I think if I had an unlimited amount of funds, I'd probably shop around for another power station and try to find something better. But this is what I got, so this is what I'm gonna make work. Caught some rare sunshine here in May, so I'm trying out some different solar charging configurations for the Starlink Mini power box. I have here this 36 watt FlexSolar solar panel that folds up really nicely, and it's designed for, you know, packing into this box or packing in your backpack. It has a variety of outputs. It's got a DC 5521 output, which just so happens to be the exact same as the Starlink Mini stock cable. It's got a USB-C output and a USB-A output. I'm mostly interested in the USB-C and the DC output. So what I noticed is we also have a smaller version of this, the 20 or 25 watt. That one does not have PD output on its USB-C. This one will go from 5 volts 3 amps to 12 volt 1.5 amp. The other one's just straight up 5 volt 3 amp output. So it doesn't like it. That Anchor power station does not like the non-PD input. So I tested that out and found that out the hard way. And so I'm glad I did, because I would not have liked to have found that out when I really, really needed it. So now that I have the pass-through situation figured out, I've got the USB-C with the proper pins right here that will allow for that energy negotiation in between the Anchor and the solar panel or whatever power input that I have, or even output, since we have that connected to the input-output USB-C port. I am going to try first plugging things into that. So I have just the straight up USB-C going into that input, and I'm going to connect that to the USB-C on the solar panel here. And I've got the Anchor app on my cell phone. We're going to see just what that gives us here in the direct sunshine. And so right now I've got 10 watts. I imagine here, if I can just realign that, we're gonna improve that just a little bit. We have a few floating clouds that are passing by that are screwing up my test, but I was getting anywhere from around 15 to 18 watts. And here we're up to 18 watts, if you're able to see that through the glare here. But you'll notice here, I've got that 3-headed power cable. This is a really nice tool, and you'll know I like to have lots more tools in my toolbox than fewer. So we've got the USB-C, we've got the cigarette lighter, and we've got the 5521 DC. That's just like a stock cable. And on the other end, of course, we've got the DC 5521 output, but I found an adapter for that XT60 solar port on the Anchor, and that goes to 5521. So I'm going to plug that in. We're going to try a couple other configurations. So first off, we'll remove this USB-C cable, and we're going to, I'm going to plug this into the XT60 port on the Anchor power station here, and I'm going to use the USB-C into the solar panel, just like before, except we're going into the XT60, and we'll see what the app shows us for output here. If we don't have a cloud bothering us, and yeah, right at 18 watts, same as before. If you are able to see any of that, I hope this isn't a waste of your time. And okay, so that works. But I really like the idea of just going straight up with this DC 5521 plug. I don't know why, but it just seems kind of nice. So I'm going to plug that into the panel here, straight into the XT60. And the app will show us what we're getting here. Make sure I'm not blocking the sun. I see 10 watts. Come on, 18 watts. So pretty much all of these give about the same amount of power input into the Anchor. I think you just got to set this up and try various configurations and see what works for you, what meets your goals before you really, really need this thing to work in order to support your mission. Now, unfortunately, what I'm finding is that none of these folding backpackable solar panel options are enough to keep up with the energy demands of the Starlink Mini, which is quite the power hog. At best, I can hope to extend its runtime or top off the power station while I'm not using the Mini. But if your goals require that you keep a power station topped off while you're running the Starlink, you'll probably need to step things up to something like this 100 watt panel. And what I'm finding is that whatever the advertised rated output is for a solar panel, I can safely chop that in half, and that's what I can realistically expect to get out of it in full sun. So I'm looking at the Anchor app here, and I see 26 watts out to the Mini and 51 watts input from the solar panel. So that's enough to keep it running all day. Unfortunately, you can see here the size of this makes the trade-off apparent. So it might be a good option if you're extended on a fire standby all day, or you're trying to set up some sort of remote operation. You really need to keep this thing running for an extended period of time. I want to thank you all for hanging out with me today. I really had a lot of fun on this project, and even more so, I really enjoyed learning from all the lessons you had to share about your similar projects. And that's one of the things I've really come to enjoy about this channel. I'm sharing these lessons that I've learned from my projects, and I'm also learning a ton from you guys. I really enjoy this information sharing, so please keep it up. And I realize this isn't the best option for everybody. Not everybody's going to want this or have a need for it. And if it's not for you, I'm not trying to pressure you into doing it. Don't do it. And I did have a conversation recently with Terrence at the Partisan Comms group, and it was a really good conversation. He is one person who evaluated this and decided it's not for him. And I think he had some really good words of wisdom on that. And so regardless of which direction you're going, if you are going to adopt a capability like this, or you think it's not for you, I hope you'll find as profound of meaning in his words as I did.
Right. Yeah, you bring up a good point, because there's probably, danger in being dependent on any one thing. When, maybe in this context, uh, if people use this as their only way to get information, they might stop building layered communications plans, and, things like that do cause, fragility, I think. In that context, I think from a preparedness and communications perspective, Starlink is probably best viewed as a highly capable layer, but maybe not the only one.